Hi, and welcome back. It seems to me the only thing that makes this harder than writing this all out in a book is that I have to think about what I'm going to wear and clear the clutter out of my office. But I actually do miss footnotes because I'm getting all of this from somewhere. So I'll attach bibliography with notes and sources. Although it occurs to me that what kind of nerd misses footnotes? All right, moving on. In the last segment, I talked about the progressive view of American history. Now, let's look at a different view. Let's look at America from a different perspective. According to what we might call the reactionary or the regressive view, when America was young, it was a place of wide open opportunity. There was almost no federal government. There were almost no regulations. People, well, white men, could do what they wanted. On the frontier, they could grab land. Before regulatory agencies and regulations, and most of the laws we have in place now, they could fix prices, they could manipulate markets, they could cheat, they could grab, they could sell you bad goods and it was your problem. According to this view, though, America started out pure and free. If white men were in control, it's because they deserved it. According to this view, nature forms a hierarchy, a kind of a natural order. So John Calhoun, who was vice president under Andrew Jackson, actually said that slavery is a positive good based on inherent differences in the races. Women, of course, were seen as irrational and unsuited for public life. This is all a forerunner of the makers and takers theory, which says if you remove regulations and let nature take its course, those who are capable will produce enough abundance and create enough jobs for everyone. If this sounds like a myth, that's because it is. White supremacy is a myth. Historian Heather Cox Richardson, in her book, How the South Won the Civil War, talks about the cowboy myth. The white man on a horse with his gun, making his own way on his own ingenuity without the government help. This is also a myth, but it's the ideal a lot of people hold. According to this view, the Civil War infringed on liberty by taking power away from local governments and by upsetting the natural order of things. The Civil War, or government intrusion, interfered. Under this view, taxes are a form of theft. Under this view, the programs and regulatory agencies of the Franklin Delano Roosevelt era were the beginning of a controlling, bureaucratic, administrative state spewing regulations that infringe on everybody's personal liberty. According to this view, American history is on a downward slope. Regressives feel if they don't act quickly, the slope will continue downward until all that is good about America will be destroyed and forever lost. Now, what I have discovered from studying American constitutional history is that there are no slopes. There's an upwardly sloping zigzag. Now, I drew a diagram. You can see this is a sophisticated presentation complete with a diagram. The way I think of the history now is progressives push forward and reactionaries push back. So we do sort of mostly progress because they never push us all the way back. So take the Civil War amendments, for example. After the Civil War, the progressives added the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments to the Constitution. The 13th Amendment prohibited slavery. Reactionaries pushed back against this by devising a criminal justice system that puts lots of black men in jail and then puts them into chain gangs. The reactionaries pushed back against the 14th Amendment due process and equal protection requirements for all people, holding that, for example, women were not intended to be included in We the People. The reasoning was that while infants and lunatics are also people, but you don't let them vote, so women, yes, are technically people, but they're more like infants and lunatics. Of course, the reactionaries pushed back against the 15th Amendment, allowing black men to vote by creating voter restriction laws. But while the reactionaries pushed us back, they didn't push us all the way back to 1850, so there was some progress. Now, reactionaries have been trying to roll back the New Deal ever since the 30s. And they have somewhat succeeded, which is why our current income level, our income inequality, is approaching 1920s levels. Now, the modern civil rights movement happened because of federal court orders and federal legislation, like the Civil Rights Act and the Voting Rights Act. The backlash against the civil rights movement started immediately and we're still riding that backlash. So the law breaking that you see in the Republican Party is a pushback against the laws that didn't used to be there by people who don't think those laws should be there. So the moral arc of the universe does bend toward justice, but much more slowly than we'd like and with constant setbacks. So seeing history as a zigzag lifts us out of the feeling of helpless shock when there's a pushback and puts us into the mindset of, here we go again. We made some progress, so now they're trying to push it back. Next, I'm going to offer a brief history of the two major political parties. I hope you're finding these clips helpful, and thank you for joining me.